Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is to take a huge stack of sources, all this research, and just boil it down. We give you the intellectual shortcut you need to really get a handle on a topic. And today, we are tackling something that is, I think, universally relatable and deeply challenging: parenting.
Yeah.
But not just, how to handle a toddler meltdown on the pavement or that classic teenage eye roll. It's about how we handle the huge, overwhelming tidal wave of feeling that parenting triggers in us.
Exactly. I mean, when you sign up to be a parent, you are signing up for the whole emotional spectrum. You get that crippling anxiety about their future,
Oh, yeah.
or that sudden explosive rage when you just feel completely disrespected.
And the guilt, the crushing, insidious guilt that just whispers that you're failing every single day.
And these aren't small things. They're overwhelming, they're painful, and they can make you feel so out of control.
And the material we've pulled together for this dive, it really emphasizes this isn't just about, adult stress management. It's directly linked to how our kids develop.
Oh, absolutely. The research is just crystal clear. The most powerful lesson we teach our kids, it isn't the rules we enforce.
Yeah.
It's the emotional modeling we do.
Okay.
So parents who are willing to feel, to name, and to honor their own big emotions, they are modeling true self-awareness,
Yeah.
true self-regulation,
And that's the skill set that helps kids become resilient.
resilient, self-confident, optimistic.
Yeah.
If we shut our feelings down, we're basically teaching them to be afraid of their own. The stakes for the next generation are they couldn't be higher.
So the goal today isn't to pretend we can switch these feelings off, because you can't.
And you shouldn't.
Right. It's to find some mechanical tools to work with them skillfully. One of the sources had this great line. It said, understanding your emotions is like looking under the hood of a car.
I love that.
Yeah. Once you understand the parts, you can see what's wrong and actually get things running smoothly again. So our deep dive today is going to unpack 4 really practical tools to help you master your own emotional state. And it all starts with the most basic and I think most ignored truth about where emotions actually live.
We have to start with the body.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the core insight that our culture just tends to gloss over because we're so obsessed with logic.
We try to think our way out of feelings.
We try to reason our way out of them. But emotions aren't logical problems. You can't solve them with a witty thought or some big intellectual argument. They're physiological signals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about hunger or thirst.
Okay.
You don't think your way into feeling hungry. You feel that biological cue in your stomach.
Right.
Emotions are exactly the same. They begin in the body as a response before you even attach a story to them.
That makes so much sense when you say it like that, but it's so hard to remember in the heat of the moment. Like, I get the concept, but when my kid is screaming, my first instinct isn't to, pause and scan my body. It's to fix the problem and the chaos now.
And that's the habit we have to break. We have to practice the pause. And the very first step in that practice is just noticing the data. The sources gave some really vivid examples of how parenting stress shows up physically.
Yeah.
Once you know the signs, you can start to track them.
Okay, let's run through a few of the big ones. Anxiety. That chronic worry, that feeling of obsessively planning for every possible disaster. Your kid getting hurt, failing a test. What does that feel like in the body?
Well, anxiety's job is literally to ward off danger, but it takes a massive physical toll. You might feel a racing heart, that classic hollow feeling in your stomach.
Yeah, the pit in the stomach.
Exactly. Tense shoulders creeping up to your ears. And here's the crucial part. It hijacks your logic.
What do you mean?
When anxiety is high, you literally cannot think clearly. Your capacity for complex thought, for problem solving, it's impaired. Your body is stuck in fight or flight.
Okay. What about anger? The sources called it the turbocharged emotion.
Yeah, anger is all about asserting yourself, protecting your boundaries. So physically, you might feel a tense jaw, that unmistakable rising heat inside.
Your blood boiling.
Your blood boiling, exactly. And the physical impulse to yell or fight back, that's your body's beta signal saying, hey, a boundary has been crossed here. I need to stand up for myself.
And the last one, the stealth attacker, guilt. That awful heavy feeling that seems to show up whenever we try to take 5 minutes for ourselves.
That guilt fatigue is so real. It's a self-conscious emotion. And its job is to stop us from harming other people, which is a good thing.
Right.
But parents, we tend to turn it on ourselves for no reason. It's that moment you choose 15 minutes of quiet over building one more Lego tower. And suddenly the self-loathing just hits.
And physically.
It can be a heaviness in your chest,
No.
low energy,
No.
just that general pervasive bad feeling inside.
So the first practical step, the first tool, is to become an emotional detective.
That's it. Your only job is to ignore the story for a second, the judgment, the criticism, and just notice the sensations, the ones that arise below the neck. That physical sensation, that is the raw data. That's your starting point, not the thought that comes after.
Okay, so if step one is noticing the physical data in the body, the next question has to be, what is that sensation actually trying to tell me? We have to move from just sensation to, the actual message.
Precisely. And that moves us right into the second critical insight, which is mapping the emotional landscape. The sources describe emotions not as problems to be solved, but as brilliant messengers.
Brilliant messengers, I like that.
They're necessary for survival, for relationships, for navigating everything tough that life throws at you. And the key here is to know the difference between the two main types of emotions. First, you have the core emotions.
Okay.
These are pre-wired in our brains. They evolve to prompt actions that help us survive.
Oh, wow.
They each have a specific job.
These are the fundamentals, the ones we need. So like anger helps us stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
Sadness helps us mourn and process a loss. Fear tells us to get away from danger. Disgust stops us from eating something poisonous.
Right.
And joy or excitement that helps us celebrate and connect. Those are all designed to move us forward.
Exactly. But then you have the second category, the inhibitory emotions.
Okay, and this is where it gets tricky.
This is where it gets very tricky. These emotions protect us, but sometimes at our own expense. And they do it by blocking access to those core emotions,
And the big three are guilt, anxiety, and shame.
the inhibitory trilogy.
And this is where the deep dive, I think, really hits home for anyone listening, because those three are just constantly in play when you're a parent. Let's use a real-world example. Say you have this constant feeling of anxiety whenever you're dealing with a really critical family member.
Like a parent or an in-law.
Right, someone who's always critiquing your choices, your body is just tight with anxiety. But the material is saying that anxiety is just the blocker. So what's the core emotion it's stopping you from feeling?
Well, often it's anger. If someone is criticizing you, your core protective mechanism is anger. It's the drive to assert a boundary and say, stop. But maybe in your childhood, expressing anger was dangerous. Maybe it was forbidden. So your system defaulted today. Anxiety as a safer defense to block the anger you were taught was unacceptable.
So the anxiety keeps the peace on the outside.
But it just burns you out on the inside.
And that brings up such a profound point. This whole defense mechanism, using these inhibitory emotions, it's rooted in our own history. We were emotionally trained for this.
Absolutely. If our emotions were, rebuffed or shamed or just ignored when we were kids, if we were told stop crying or you have no reason to be angry,
We learned it was unsafe to feel.
we learned it was unsafe to feel that full core emotion. So as adults, we develop these really intricate defenses to avoid those unbearable feelings.
And as parents, those defenses pop up as, beating ourselves up over a small mistake.
Totally. Or shutting down completely when you're triggered.
Or grabbing that glass of wine or scrolling endlessly on your phone.
It's often a defense mechanism, a way to avoid a feeling you just do not want to deal with.
Which is why we need the third tool, a structured map to navigate this whole process.
Yes, to guide you past those old defenses and the inhibitory emotions and get you toward your core truth.
Okay, so let's unpack the structure. It's called the change triangle, and it's been adapted from therapeutic models to be accessible for everybody. It guides you from those familiar defenses, those inhibitory emotions, toward experiencing your core emotions in a safe, productive way. So step one is what we just talked about. Locate your state. Are you feeling guilty? Are you scrolling Twitter endlessly? Are you just giving your partner the silent treatment? That's your first point on the triangle.
Right, and the temptation here is to immediately jump to problem solving. But the triangle forces you to pause and to move through the feeling. So step two is to use your emotional detective skills again. Scan your body for specific sensations to identify the core emotion underneath.
Okay, so what are the signs?
If you feel a specific heaviness, a sinking in your heart, that often points to sadness or grief. A strong impulse to flee or run away, that's fear.
And the boiling blood or the clenched jaw?
That's anger. These are the physical keys that unlock the underlying truth.
But practically, for the parent listening right now, when the moment is pure chaos, the toddler is tantruming in the grocery store, how do you actually manage to pause and feel the heavy heart or the hot jaw before you just react?
It's about micro pauses, You don't need 5 minutes of silent meditation. You need 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
The pause is just a conscious choice to step back and name your state. I feel frantic, or I feel rage building.
Wait.
And that act of naming is step 3. It's the critical final mechanism because it literally changes your brain chemistry.
This is that science of emotional granularity, right? The idea that being specific in naming the emotion is vital.
Exactly. Emotional granularity means having a precise vocabulary for your feelings.
Yes.
And the research shows that this one small conscious act immediately dials down your distress.
Yep.
When you name the emotion, I'm feeling immense frustration right now.
Right.
Instead of just, I feel bad, it calms the limbic system in your brain.
Can you explain the limbic system's role here in a way that's going to stick with people?
Yeah. Okay. Think of the limbic system as your brain's internal smoke detector.
Okay.
When it senses danger, real or psychological, like shame, it starts screaming. It triggers the body's full stress response.
Right.
When you pause and consciously name the feeling, you're essentially walking over to the smoke detector and saying, I see the smoke, I know what it is, I'm safe.
Yeah.
That acknowledgement calms the alarm and lets your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, come back online.
That is a fantastic analogy. So the ultimate payoff for a parent is that once you pause, name, and validate the feeling, you shift from being reactive to being regulated.
Yes.
And then you can actually figure out the cause. Is this about my kid or is this about my own exhaustion? And then you can actually solve the problem. So that structure helps in the immediate crisis, but for lasting change, we need the fourth and final tool, self-reflection. This helps us move beyond the immediate trigger to understand the root cause of our most painful patterns.
Because we so often parent using the emotional blueprint we were given. Without conscious awareness, those old, painful childhood patterns just repeat themselves with our own kids. It's the definition of emotional inheritance.
So how do we activate that self-reflection?
The sources suggest these simple self-awareness stretches. Little introspection questions you can ask yourself when distress comes up. First, what specifically is bringing up this emotion right now? And then, maybe more profoundly, is this emotion somehow related to my own childhood? If so, how is the past repeating itself in this moment?
And the patterns are so consistent when you start looking. If your parents shamed you for making a mistake, you're probably way more likely to snap at your own kids when they mess up.
Because that's the emotional language you learned.
Exactly. Or if conflict was always avoided, feelings just swept under the rug.
Then you'll probably steer clear of tough but necessary conversations with your own kids, even when you know you need to set a boundary. That anxiety around conflict is inherited.
But the really hopeful message here is that just because you recognize the pattern doesn't mean you're doomed to repeat it.
No.
Our brains are so adaptive. Even when those old childhood wounds pop up in our parenting today, change is possible.
It is. The brain can form new neural pathways. It's a process called neuroplasticity.
So by consistently learning to name, validate, and work through your emotions with these tools, you are literally paving a new, smoother highway in your brain for emotional response.
You're choosing a different, healthier inheritance for your child.
So let's just quickly recap those 4 essential practices. It starts with practice noticing your body.
Making that shift from logic to physical sensation.
Then mapping the emotional landscape so you know the difference between the core emotions that serve you and the inhibitory emotions that block you.
Right. Guilt, anxiety, and shame.
The third is to work the change triangle. Move through your defenses, pause, name, and validate that core emotion.
And finally, exercise self-reflection. Connect today's distress back to your own history and know that change is always possible through neuroplasticity.
Using these tools guides you, the parent, to a more regulated, more responsive state.
And when you're regulated, you stay connected with your kids, you respond with intention, not just reaction, and you successfully model what it actually means to thrive emotionally.
You're giving them a foundation for resilience that will last a lifetime.
Exactly.
And we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, using the language from this deep dive. If those core emotions like anger and sadness are pre-wired to get you to take a beneficial action, to set a boundary, process a loss, move away from danger, then if you're struggling with crushing guilt or persistent anxiety this week, ask yourself this: what protective boundary or difficult truth is that inhibitory feeling trying to stop you from acting on? What is your survival mechanism truly prompting you to do?